Hello everyone, welcome along to race 2 here at the Nürburgring for TCR Europe. We are very much now into the second half of our season, and once again it is a beautiful day here at the Nürburgring, the Nürburg Castle overlooking the Nordschleife that wraps around it and the Grand Prix circuit where we are racing today. It's 20 degrees air temperature, 37 degrees tap temperature already, and it's going to be a very, very hot day for those that are racing in the height of the day, but we are racing just around midday and therefore around similar temperatures to what we saw in yesterday's race, and that means they'll have good data, good understanding of how this track is going to handle. And here is the overall grid position, going into today's race. So Jack Young and Viktor Davidovsky will be on the pole position, with Jakub Galash and Klim Gavlarov on row 2. There'll be a gap where Tom Coronel should be on row 3 alongside championship leader Michael Ashkona. And we reverse those that qualified in the top 10 positions for this second race. Those that missed out on the top 12 stay in the positions that they qualified in. So with the difference being that Jimmy Claret got a penalty for fitting a new engine in race 1, but he takes his proper grid position for this second race. So he's a few positions up than he was yesterday. Brutal Fish were on pole position yesterday with Ezekiel Callejas. It's Jack Young today who has the pole position due to that reverse grid. Jack is carrying ballast not from his performance in qualifying at Spa, but in fact from his performance at Zandvoort. The reason for that is he didn't do a lap at Spa, and therefore they couldn't readjust the weight of the car, so he carries that weight. Viktor Davidovsky alongside was helped a lot by teammate Franco Girolami, so it's all Honda front row from two different teams. PSS with the best coffee in the paddock, of course. And then Jakub Galash, who had a very good qualifying session, faded in the race unfortunately yesterday, but the Hyundai does look pretty strong in the hands of Mato Homela, and Galash had a good run. Klim Gavrilov could be the dark horse of this one for VRC. The team is small, they are still learning this championship, but now, as you can see, he's only got 1, 2, 3 cars ahead of him, and a relatively clear track, the best of the Audis. That should be the second of the Audis, Tom Coronel, but due to media commitments around the Dutch Grand Prix, Tom is not taking the start of the race, and therefore Ashkona has kind of a clear track to his right-hand side to shut the door. Ashkona. I've got to get his name right. I've been pronouncing it wrong all season. I've got the inflection in the wrong place. Michael Ashkona. Teddy Claret next up in the Peugeot. Had a good run yesterday. Peugeot looking good. And brother Jimmy with that engine problem in qualifying, that's why he's further back on the grid. And then the first of the Sebastian Loeb Hyundai Elantras. Nils Langeveld nearly had the opportunity to get a couple of positions extra at the end of race 1 when Girolami and Ashkona started to fight, ultimately finishing in P3, and could have a good chance here if he gets a good start. Franco Girolami, so frustrated after yesterday's race, almost tears coming out of his eyes when we spoke. Such was his frustration. Did such a good job of leading the race up until, well, the last lap, where he lost it at turn 3. Basically went the wrong side, defended the wrong part of the track, and gave the opportunity for Ashkona to go around the outside and take the position. Ezekiel Callejas was the pole man from race 1. Didn't manage to make it happen with the weight that he was carrying on the car from his successes in Spa, and therefore faded. He starts P10 here with Dusan Borkovic and Nicolas Bart all Audi row behind him, and both of those with issues yesterday. Borkovic struggling with a gearbox problem, so should be able to make his way through the field from that 11th and 12th positions. Then we got Banani and Homela and Taufik behind in 3 Hyundais. Felice Yelmini is the last of our Elantras, and he is way down the field after a disappointing qualifying. ...21 cars on the grid. We do not have the Cupra from Zengo Motorsport that does appear on every entry list that we see because they paid for a full entry, but have so far not fielded a car apart from for Daniel Nagy at the start of the season in Slovakia, which is a real shame because I think Nagy basically with ending up with too many things to do. Here's the drivers' classification after the races that we've had, with 5 more races to go. Ascona leads Girolami, with Langeveld now 43 points behind Girolami. Mehdi Benani knocked down to 4th position, Coronel 5th, but maybe we'll lose that position to Callejas 6th, Bart 7th, and Jimmy Claret in 8th position, the better of the Claret brothers, but starting further back today. That is how the championship looks without dropped scores, but there is 2 of your worst scores that you drop across the championship. Ascona missing Zandvoort means that he will drop those 2 scores. 2 zeros, meaning 276 is his total. Girolami, however, will drop a 7 and an 18, so 25 extra points. Shows how big Ascona's lead is. Niels Langeveld will actually drop 2 double zeros, so he'll be on 201. So actually, it's closer between Girolami and Langeveld than it first appears in the drivers' classification. You have to say that the likes of Jack Young will be very disappointed with 13th spot. He showed really good pace in the races that he's got through cleanly. But unfortunately, there aren't many of those that he has, and his teammate Martin Rieber down in 19th position. Quite a lot of contact between Rieber and Leonov in our Spa race, and Evgeny deciding not to come and join us here this weekend. That is the other car, therefore, that we are missing, but we do add Lukas Stolicic to the back of our field in an Audi. Lukas coming from the Central Europe Championship, and finding the pace pretty difficult in TCR Europe. A big step up for him. He qualified last and ended up some 10 seconds back at the end of the race. So drivers really struggled with car balance yesterday, especially those that are heavy. End of the race really was a struggle for a lot of cars. But they should have a bit more data now, a bit more understanding of how these tyres are reacting at this circuit with these temperatures. All unknowns, because we've got new Hankook tyres for this year, and we've never raced here on the GP circuit at the Nürburgring, although a few of the drivers, Niels Langeveld, for instance, has raced in TCR Germany here. But that, of course, with different tyres. And it's unusual to be at the Nürburgring with plus 20 degrees air temperature. Usually it's horrible, but we've really been blessed this weekend. It's absolutely stunning weather. Now, Jack Young has a very heavy Honda. Davidovsky does not, but it is downhill into the first corner, so where the drags up the hill, where you're carrying the extra 60 kilos, will make it more of a struggle. The downhill parts may be to his advantage. Maybe he'll just have a bit more traction off the line, Jack Young, than Davidovsky. Either way, though, with Galash behind as well, and then Gavrilov, not so much experience there. Jack could, if he gets a good start, give himself a little bit of a buffer before the chasing pack gets through. Race 2s are always exciting. Let's see how it goes here at the Nürburgring. Gavrilov's made a good start. Davidovsky's made a very, very poor start on the outside of row 1. He's being swallowed up by the pack, and Jack Young is going to lead going into turn 1. But look at that, Miguel Ascona. How isn't he found room? He already comes around the outside. There's not going to be much room for him there, but it's the inside for the second turn. There's no contact further back, and Ascona is up into second position already. As Davidovsky, Taufik, and Nikolai Bart try to go side by side through turn 2. There's a PSS Honda doing the dive down the inside. That's Franco Girolami. No, it's not. It's Davidovsky, sorry. And Davidovsky gets put sideways as they all get into each other. He was being very, very aggressive. And Davidovsky then puts the back of the pack. And Franco Girolami has the inside now to try and get past. Sjakan Galash, who is holding on to that third position. There is Davidovsky now side by side with Dusan Borkovic. I don't know how much damage. It would look to wheel damage, so sometimes you can bend a toe arm or something like that. But already a big gap for Jack Young. Ashkona in second, then a gap to Galash, who's holding up. Franco Girolami, and then Teddy Claret, and Gavrilov has faded a little bit. Expected Gavrilov to be a bit better. Cold tyres through this almost flat out left-right. Big swapper there from Jakim Galash in the short Hyundai i30. Got to turn in just a little bit earlier on the first lap. Let those tyres do their sliding, knowing that they're not really up to temperature as yet. As all the cars come shooting through, all 20 starters still on track. The reason why there was a gap, by the way, for Tom Coronel is he hadn't informed the race stewards that he wasn't going to be here today, and therefore, if he had informed them, we would have closed up the grid. But because he didn't, we ended up having a hole. Side by side, it's the tight chicane here. The GT cars are using the more flowing chicane, but we are using the F1 style stop and start chicane. Lots of battling going on. Dusan Borkovic, Davidovski, that's Jimmy Claret in the second. The Peugeot is trying to get through. Mato Homola, and then Mato Homola's got Felice Jelmini behind him. Franco Girolami really needs to be aggressive here, and he shoots to the inside line. We saw him really late on the brakes in yesterday's race, and he's done it again. That was a great move from the Argentine. Now, can he get his head down, not ask too much of these Hankook tyres, and try and close down the gap to his championship rival, Ashkona, especially as Niels Langeveld has not made any progress. Still in 8th position, the Dutchman. There he is, tucked under the rear wing of Isidro Callejas. Mato Homola a little bit sideways. Side by side, being attacked by one side by Jelmini and the other by Mehdi Benani, who really hasn't shown form here this weekend. Those Elantras in the hands of the Moroccans and Jelmini and the Italian really have struggled, but Niels Langeveld has managed to find pace where the rest have not. Look at that, 3 Sebastian Loeb Elantras at the tail of the field. Benani 13th. Sorry, Benani 14th, Jelmini 15th, and then 16th for Taufik. Taufik getting up ahead now of Martin Rieber and Sylvain Poussier. Good pace from Jack Young so far. Ashkona hasn't closed in yet, but remember what Franco Girolami said to us on our social media channels after yesterday's race. He said Ashkona has got such a good car in the second half of the race. He really struggled in the second half of the race to keep the tyres alive, whereas Ashkona and the Cupra just seemed to have good balance all the way through. And now Ashkona onto the tail of Jack Young. How much is Jack going to defend? How fired up is he? Yesterday he was very dismissive of any possibility of a win or even a podium. Just struggling so much with the weight of that car. So will he defend? He's not defending right now. But you know, why not? Why not get your elbows high? Well, not fight for your life. After all, this isn't qualifying, this is the race, and anything can happen. If Jack starts putting Ashkona on different parts of the circuit, he can slow him up, and then if he gets Girolami involved in it, then Ashkona will start looking in his rear-view mirror as well as ahead of him. So it's actually Jelmini, Benani, Taufik, those 3 Elantras. So the Jelmini and Benani do have a couple of points in their pocket right now. Taufik missing out, so it's a bit of a shake-up on the last lap. Here's a replay. No idea. Replay at the start of the race. Davidovski did not get off the line at all. What about Niels Langeveld? Look at the first of the Elantras, choosing to do the inside line. And it's quite early on the brakes, isn't it? So Girolami, therefore, goes around the outside of him, and he's almost kind of stuck behind Gavrilov. And then there's no room for him to cut back onto the inside, is there? Ashkona just making a fantastic start. There's Taufik in a sandwich of Audis. And then down here, Davidovski fires it down the inside. Looks really good there, especially as Galash understeers wide. And then Galash just comes back. Tap 1, tap 2. The reason the second tap was there is because Galash turned in and he was hit by Gavrilov, because Gavrilov was already occupying that piece of tarmac. Change of the lead then. Ashkana goes to the head of the lead, and Jack Young can do nothing about him. For the sake of Yas, Jack at least should have tried to defend a little bit there to help Girolami out, but that was a very, very easy pass from Ashkana. Maybe we didn't see the start of it. Maybe there was a mistake on the previous corner which slowed down the momentum of the Brutal Fish Honda. But Ashkana is going to check out here. Oh, another great move from Girolami. Dives to the inside, hooks up the apex. He's fired up today. Can he go with the Spaniard? Had a really good chat with Michael after race one, talking all things touring car racing, his experiences both with TCR, with this Cupra, as a Cupra Works driver in Europe and in the World Series, and then of course in the Electric Championship also driving for Cupra. But it's such a different car. It's a rear wheel drive 700 brake horsepower machine, not these which are about 300, and of course front wheel drive. So a totally different driving style from him, something that he hasn't got great experience with. But at the moment, as it stands right now, Ashkana could win all three championships, had the possibility of doing so. Down the inside, finally a little bit of a gap for Nils Langevel to get ahead of Isidro Callejas. Callejas gets forced onto the gravel as well, so that's going to make those tyres a little bit dusty as we come up the hill here, and Nicolas Bart takes advantage of that. Nice move from Nicolas. Absolutely committed to it, and he's towing Dusan Borkovic with him. I think Borkovic is going to go around the outside here. Outside of one corner, which will give him the inside for the next, and unfortunately Callejas there got completely hung out to dry. Sometimes the secret is not to try and fight it. Sometimes the secret is to concede the position, slot back behind the driver who's just overtaken you, and then gather your thoughts and do it again. And unfortunately, by trying to go around the outside there by Callejas, oh, Nicolas Bart making a mistake, cutting across the chicane. So now he's got dirty tyres, and Callejas is going to come back down the inside of Dusan Borkovic here. Is there space? There's a little bit of an overlap. There's a little bit of a touch. And now side by side they will run. Another little touch as they exit the corner. Borkovic does have a slipstream from Nicolas Bart. It was Bart that caused all this, because it was Bart that was off the circuit. But actually, the guys behind have reacted, come out of the throttle, and here comes Jimmy Claret looking to the inside of Davidovski. He's very late on the brakes and looks down the inside of Dusan Borkovic. I tell you what, that Honda does look very, very good on the brakes, doesn't it? And can Davidovski now go around the outside of Callejas? This will be a brave move if he manages to make it stick. Little bit of rubbing going on. Oh, here's Felice Jelmini. This can't end well, surely. There's 5 cars all trying to squabble over the same piece of tarmac. Jelmini passes 3 of them already. Now he's on the outside line, so he'll get hung out to dry, and he loses 1, he loses 2. He's going to lose more, maybe 3 or 4 positions. Borkovic looks to the inside of Jimmy Claret. This is more like it. This is touring cars, boys. Victor Davidovski all sideways, holds it together. Again, even though he was completely across the track, still no massive big contacts. Great touring car racing here in TCR at the Nürburgring. Right, so all of that sorting out means that Bart is in 8th, Callejas 9th, Borkovic in 10th position. Let's see what happens here to Davidovski. So Mato Homola, okay, Davidovski probably brakes a little early because of what's going on ahead, and Mato Homola just gets into the tail of him. Mato Homola staying behind him so he doesn't get a penalty, but he does have a little bit of damage on the front of that older Hyundai now. And he's under pressure from Mehdi Benani, who looks to the inside. Is there a space there? No, there isn't. So all that shaking up means that Langeveld is 7th, Bart is 8th, Callejas is 9th position, then Dusan Borkovic in 10th, Jimmy Claret in 11th, and then 12th for Jelmini, 13th for Taufik, 14th for Davidovski, and 15th. And who's going into the pits there? Who has got a problem with their car? It's one of the Sebastian Loeb racing cars. It is Jelmini who comes to pit lane. Oh, he just had the most amazing lap. making up so much ground, and the Italian is going to retire out of this race, and that is not good for his championship. Another 0 score. Right, now we do have a little bit of a battle going on here. Jack Young starting to fade into the clutches of Jakim Galash. Teddy Claret in the Peugeot is being followed by Klim Gavrilov, and then Nils Langevel just in the distance. So this all could concertina up as Michael Ashkona leads happily by 2 seconds over Franco Girolami. Last lap was a 2:08.2 from Ashkona and a 2:08.7 from Girolami. So the gap went out by half a second. I wonder what the problem is with Yelmini. That's such a disappointment from the Italian. Jack Young, with that extra weight, will really exponentially be struggling with the tyres on that car. Every lap it will get worse and worse and worse. We'll be really looking forward to Monza, our next round, where the car will be ballast free because of its performance, its time, his pace in qualifying. Ashkona will carry weight into our next round. But there's big gaps. And Ashkona has proved before that even though he might be the heaviest car, he can still take decent victories. He took a double victory in Spa. Yeah, okay, he didn't qualify the best. Looking at Isidro Callejas, our pole man from yesterday. Had problems in the race, dropped down the field, and now in 9th position. Looking at the tail of Nicolas Bart, it's got Dusan Borkovic behind. Really would have hoped that Borkovic would have made up more ground than he has. And ultimately just not had the year that you would expect from such experience. Such a good driver as well. You know, it's not that he's just done it a long time. He's also won in the World Championship. He's won the TCR before as well. Hasn't necessarily had the consistency over the last 2 years, but had a great weekend in Zandvoort. Got himself on the podium. But would you believe that's the only podium that Dusan has had all year? Down in 10th in the championship coming here, behind both of the Clarets and behind both of his teammates. So with this no-show of Coronel today, he'll then have a double 0 to drop out of his championship standing. So he will stay on 183 at the moment. He had a 0 score at Zandvoort in race 2. So he can drop a double 0 like Ashkona. The question will be, when he gets to Barcelona, which will he be with us in TCR Europe, or will he go to the World Touring Car Cup race, which has been rescheduled to the same weekend? I'll say that with an exasperated voice. Jack Young, for the moment, holding on to a podium position. We have seen him on the podium before, second in race 1 at Zandvoort, where really that car came alive, didn't it? That was the one weekend where he had a pretty good weekend as a whole, taking the pole position and taking second in the race. Paul Ricard wasn't bad in terms of pace, but remember he retired out of race 2, and then obviously Spa was a disaster with his mistake in qualifying just compounding the weekend, really. So P3 would still be a very, very good result if he can hold on. Joachim Galasch starting to put some pressure on him. Looks to the outside line. That's a very dangerous thing to do for Joachim Galasch, because if it doesn't work out, then there's 3 cars behind that might take advantage. One comes past already. Teddy Claret has got the outside line here, slots in and makes that position stick. Can see it coming from a mile off. I always wonder why the drivers inside the car don't see it. Now, if Nils Langebelt did that at the back of this train, that would have been no problem, because there'd be nobody to pick up the pieces. But you put yourself on the outside line there, you're going to get hung out to dry, and then the 2 cars behind are going to come past as Gavrilov and Nils Langebelt go side by side. Nils Langebelt to the inside, Gavrilov into the gravel just a little bit, and through the sweeping right-hander at the bottom of the hill, Langebelt moves himself up into 6th position now. Can Langebelt get himself another podium after yesterday? Very much within shooting distance, isn't he? Here we are again. So Galasch obviously later on the brakes. Now he's offline. Now there's at least 1 car, if not 2, cars width on the inside of him. He gets a little bit of contact into the gravel, and it's easy pickings for Teddy Claret. He was lucky that Gavrilov didn't choose to come up the inside. In fact, because Gavrilov backed off was why Nils Langebelt had the opportunity. Now, time for Teddy Claret. Can he get himself on the podium once more? To the outside line, and Jack Young knows all about that, so just runs him off the circuit. You're allowed to do that. And now this is the kind of defensive work from Jack Young, which I thought we might see early doors with Ashkona. Oh, Teddy's very, very late on the brakes, so they go side by side with Galasch. Galasch to the outside line, but it will be the inside line for the next corner. Runs very, very deep to keep the car momentum going, but he will have the inside line. And here's Nils Langebelt. Will Langebelt follow him through? No, there's not quite a gap. No, there isn't. And Teddy then holds the inside line, elbows Galasch out the way, and Langebelt says, oh, there's an Elantra-spaced hole there for me. I'll take that one, thank you very much. Langebelt up another position. Here comes Gavrilov to the outside line of Galasch. Now, he can risk that move because nobody's going to follow him down the inside if it doesn't pay off for him. And in fact, he does slightly back off and just slot into position. Wise driving from the Russian. Mato Homler in the pit lane, by the way, retiring out of the race, unfortunately. Probably with cooling issues after that contact, slightly damaging the front bumper of his car. 2 more laps to go. Can Jack Young hold on for a podium? It would be a really, really strong result if he'd done so. He's really getting his elbows out now. He feels as though he can be on terms with these guys. But what about that man in the centre of shot? Nils Langebelt fighting for the championship. 3rd in the championship after yesterday's race. Moved ahead of Mehdi Badani. He's got a 0-0 to drop. So he's within kind of 20 points, I think. Rough maths of Franco Girolami for runner-up spot in TCR, with 2 more weekends to go, 4 more races. Monza in a couple of weekends' time, and then Barcelona back with SRO on the 2nd weekend of October. Now, Jack Young was struggling with straight line speed as well yesterday. That's why he's wiggling from left to right. But that's sometimes an effect of just not being able to get the power out of the corners. And so if you don't get the power on early enough, then you'll compromise kilometers per hour all the way along the straight. Either way, the defensive work there wasn't needed. Further back, I can tell you that Borkovic has got past Callejas. So Borkovic up to 9th and Spaniard down to 10th position. Meanwhile, Ashkona might as well be driving to the shops. 3.8 is the advantage. 0.3 of a second ahead of Girolami. And on that last lap, they were 3 seconds ahead of this gaggle. That is how tough Jack Young is finding things. Somebody's off a little bit wide. Who was it? Is it okay? That's fine for the moment. But of course, if you've got difficult tyres, it's not just the traction zones out of the corners, it's not just the apexes in the middle of the corners, but it's also under braking into the corners, the car feels less stable, easier to lock up a brake. And so Jack Young is hamstrung everywhere he goes, and yet still holds on to 3rd position right now from Teddy Claret and Nils Langebelt, who's done a nice run through there. got a good balance in that long wheelbase Elantra. And just look how different that car is to the Peugeot. Now, it's interesting to talk to the global boss of motorsport for Hyundai, Andrea Adamo, talking about why these cars are chosen. And it really is a marketing decision to go racing in certain different marks of cars. And that is why we're seeing the Elantra. It's not because it's the best car to fit the regulations, it's because the marketing team of Hyundai want to market this car as a sporty car, and therefore they give it to the guys at Hyundai Motorsport and say, right, make this work. Obviously, different manufacturers work in different ways. And you would never see a Honda Jazz in this championship, for instance, but to the outside line now comes Teddy Claret, and he just about oh, smoke from the left front. Has he got a puncture there? Or was he just asking too much of the tyre? I think he's got a puncture on the left front tyre. We won't see it as an effect now, unless he's damaged the brakes, which would be a shame. No, it might be brakes. It might be brakes. He's really into the side of Jack Young. Moves Jack Young out of the way, and Teddy Claret moves up ahead of him. Joachim Galash and Nils Langeveldt go side by side behind, but I'm sure all is not well with Teddy Claret. Look at the still blue smoke coming out the front left corner of that car. He's not going to be able to get to the end of the race, surely. Claret up to third, but the race stewards will look at that because of the pretty obvious ABC advantage by contact. Can they get a penalty in time before we stand on the podium, or will Jack Young only be given the trophy post-race? Or maybe the race control think there's no problem at all. The smoke seems to have dissipated from the front left corner of that car, but when he braked into the first corner, there was a huge amount of smoke from the left front corner. Langeveldt held on from that last attack from Joachim Galash. Amazing the gap that Teddy Claret has been able to create even on these last couple of corners. Yeah, there is no smoke, is there? I don't see anything anymore. To the last corner, though. Would you believe this man? Everywhere he starts on the grid, he's able to convert it to a victory. And Michael Ashkona takes another 40 points in TCR Europe. It's another double victory after Spa last time out, here in the Nürburgring as well. Second position to Franco Girolami, a pretty lonely race in the end for him. Teddy Claret comes across the line to take third, and it's Jack Young in fourth, ahead of Nils Langeveldt, Joachim Galash and Gavrilov. That was a great battle between those guys. Nicolas Bart picks up 8th position across the line with Dusan Bolkovic behind, and then Jimmy Claret and Sami Taufik. Mehdi Banani, I think, getting, no, Davidovsky in 13th, Mehdi Banani 14th and on his own, and then Martin Rieber rounding out the 15-point scorers. Ahead, I think, of, that was weird there. Looked like there was another Elantra slowly running. But there is your winner for Volcano Motorsport, Michael Ashkona, on his own this weekend, able to fully focus on the job in hand with no Evgeny Leonov as a teammate. Just one car for the team to run, and they've run it well. I wonder how Girolami is feeling. It's a good result from Girolami, considering where you started. Right, now let's have a look. Is that just... I don't know what smoke that is from the Peugeot. A lot of tyre smoke. Maybe just getting too excited on the throttle, but then coming into this corner, later on the brakes, down the inside, and removes Jack Young, who does a great job of holding on to the car, but then easily gets himself up a position. Jack Young is classified in 4th position, but surely the stewards are investigating that, and Teddy Claret may be penalised for it. Ashkona wins the race by 3.6 seconds ahead of Franco Girolami, a massive advantage over the battle for 3rd position, which was mighty entertaining. Teddy Claret, Jack Young, Nils Langeveldt, Joachim Galash and Klim Gavrilov, all part of the fun there. And then a little bit of a gap down to the two Come To You Racing Audis, 8th and 9th. Isidro Calles again fading into 10th position, and Jimmy Claret 11th Tauflik 12th, Davidovski 13th, Benani 14th, and Riba in 15th position. And then those that did not score: Pusier, Colombani, Stolicic, Homela retired, Yelmini retired, and Tom Coronel did not start. Entertaining stuff, as always, from our TCR Europe grid. Here at the Nürburgring, a beautiful day and a really fun, action-packed race too, as we always expect. Maybe not for the win, maybe not for the lead battle, but certainly throughout the field there was plenty going on. I mean, what can Michael Eschkona say to Mark James when he gets down to the paddock? Because honestly, it was just all about the start once more. He nailed it, and then by the second corner, he was up into P2. And then no defensive work from Jack Young. We might find out that Jack had made an error which we didn't see, and that's why it was so easy to get past Eschkona. But I think that would be the question. Were you surprised by the lack of defense from anybody? Cars make their way back into the paddock on the right-hand side, or towards the podium on the left. The top three will be provisional, as we do in motorsport, frustratingly, I have to say. And so even though we did see Claret with that contact, he will stand on the podium. Eschkona has a massive advantage at the head of the championship now, ahead of Franco Girolami in second position, Nils Langevel third, and Mehdi Benani fourth, Coronel fifth still, with Claret just 10 points back now, Bart in seventh, and KS in eighth position in the championship, dropping from sixth. Bien for Michael Eschkona and the boys at Cupra and Volcano Motorsport. Perfect job once more, as they have done at Spa last time out, as they have done here. And when Eschkona first came to TCR Europe after some time out, as they did when he won a double victory in Spa on the resumption of our championship last year as well.
No tenía ritmo, pero cerraba muy bien. Se ha hecho un grupito ahí hasta de 5, hasta Gabrieló, que había una guerra que flipas.
Nice bit of Spanish. Didn't come from Michael, but it came from his engineer, I think. Good rhythm, I think, was something there. I'm not very good with Spanish, but it was something like good rhythm. Wonder how Franco's feeling. I think he should be happy with it, you know? Started deep in the pack, kept out of trouble the first couple of corners, and really some good, proper overtakes to get himself into position. Tony Claret obviously with a smile on his face, but what about the damage to the front of the car? That's what tells the main story. Let's go down to Michael Eschkona, who is joined by our pit reporter, Mark James.
Michael, another race victory, another double, but this time all the hard work was done at the start.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really happy also for this second victory this weekend. A double victory, amazing. I'm really happy with the car. Yesterday, after the first race, we were working really a lot during the evening to try to improve the car, because the first part of the race yesterday was a little bit difficult for me. And yeah, we did several changes on the car. I felt much better than yesterday. And really happy, keep pushing. But yeah, amazing weekend for me.
4 races left, 2 race meetings. Are you finally allowing yourself to think about the title?
Yeah, now at the moment looks quite good for the championship. We are extending all the races, the championship points, so looks really good. But everything can happen. So still four races to go. Girolami is pushing really hard. He's driving really well, and we don't need to sleep. We don't need to sleep. We need to keep pushing, to keep working on this line, and I'm sure we will do good position at the championship.
Congratulations.
Even though he dominated yesterday They still worked on the car, they still tried to make it better, still searching for that perfect wave. Ashkona around the outside into turn one of Joachim Galash, everyone else squabbling on the inside. There was room for him, and up to second position by the time he entered the second turn. With a contact further back, Viktor Davidovski having a very poor start, then got moved out of the way. Didn't actually see if that was being investigated by the race stewards, but Franco Girolami was very decisive with his overtaking moves and looked as though he had good early pace, especially as Jack Young was leading ahead at this moment. A little bit of slide from Mato Homola as they squabbled in the big pack. No defensive work here from Jack Young, and Mikhail Ashkanar getting up the inside and into the lead quite easily. But Franco Girolami had got pretty close by that point. Further back, Isidro Calles was struggling with his Brutal Fish Honda, and he got moved out of the way by Sonny Taufik. Oh, sorry, Nils Lagerveld that was. Nicolas Bart also doing the same thing a few laps later. There was great battles further ahead. Viktor Davidovski sideways for a second time in the race. That was Mato Homola who eventually ended up retiring. This was the battle, though, that kept us entertained for the second half of the race. Jack Young holding on to third position, initially from Joachim Galash, and then from Teddy Claret, who, on the last lap, moved Jack Young aside and claimed third position. And therefore, Ashkanar taking the victory by 3.6 over Franco Girolami. 17 seconds back, we had to wait for the following battle. And I can tell you that the stewards have made a decision, and Teddy Claret will be moved off that third spot. Jack Young has been given third. The positions have been changed, and therefore the Brit will have the opportunity to stand on the podium. Great work from our race stewards to get that done before the podium celebrations. And I think what they've done is literally just swap the positions back again. So Teddy Claret drops to fourth position ahead of Nils Lagerveld. It was a 1.2 second cut. 1.2 second penalty for Teddy Claret, basically to just swap the positions. And this is why. Wonder what that smoke was on the left front tyre. Carried on for a couple of corners. I feel as though he had a brake problem. Ploughed into the back of Jack Young, claimed the position and didn't give the position back. And I'm sure Teddy Claret has had enough experience to know that was pretty cheeky. But anyway, got to the flag and race stewards have sorted it out, and we have reversed those positions. So, in third position is Jack Young. In second position, Franco Girolami. Honda 2-3, Cupra on the top step of the podium, as they were yesterday with Mikhail Ashkona. And there is Vulcano's winning team trophy. And Joachim Galash mounts the podium for Joachim Galash for best rookie. We have seen Joachim Galash on the podium before, back in Paul Ricard as best rookie. But otherwise, it's Isidro Calles who has usually taken the best rookie trophy. Now, we didn't see spraying of any Pommery yesterday. Why is Jack Young running off? Has he not got? He hasn't got any armour. That's the problem. He hasn't picked up his Pommery. And nobody's taken the foil off it. So you get this silly faff while they take the foil off. But finally they can release the bubbly. And Ashkona can celebrate his double race victory with Franco Girolami, a double podium as well. He really has established himself as best of the rest in this championship, as Franco Girolami, with such little experience as well. Of course, we know the family name so well in the world of touring cars, but Franco doesn't have anywhere like the experience of Nestor, his brother. And really just a very, very impressive result. I don't know where Jack's gone. He's obviously saving his champagne for later. There he is. Maybe Jack, well, he does get another bottle, doesn't he? Because Jack Young is our best junior of this race. So maybe we'll do a second champagne celebration. Viktor Davidovsky also behind the podium for the diamond category for drivers over 45 years old. Although Tom Coronel is not part of that crew because he's obviously overly experienced. Nils Langeveld is the best of TCR Benelux, so he picks up that trophy. And there is Jack Young. He gets a smaller bottle of Pommery for his best junior. He should have another one for the P3, I would have thought. Good to see Davidovsky up there after being assaulted a multitude of times. I think the boys are going to keep their champagne. Yeah, they'll be sharing that with the team later on back in the paddock. We've got a nice afternoon in the sun here at the Nürburgring to enjoy. And you can join us in Monza in a few weeks' time. There is the classification officially now, with Ashkona ahead of Franco Girolami and Jack Young being awarded third place after being unceremoniously moved away by Teddy Claret on that last lap. Nils Langeveld picking up fifth, Jakim Galaš sixth, Klim Gavrilov, Bart Borkovic, Kayeas, Jimmy Claret 11th, Tauflik, Davidovsky, and the rest of our 15 points scorers. 3 non-finishers, 1 non-starter, Mato Homola, Felice Yalmini, and Tom Coronel did not start today's race. Well, thank you very much for joining us here for TCR Europe at Nürburgring, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time in Monza on the 24th of September.